Scientists unlock the secrets of ancient human DNA. In the 1860s, Swiss chemist Friedrich Mischer discovered human DNA. This discovery assisted scientists in uncovering truths about our ancient ancestors. And even today, researchers made new findings. Back in 2018, for example, this excavation unearthed various old mysteries, including a hitherto undiscovered group of ancient humans, two skeletons that are 11,500 years old. In 2018, archaeologists discovered the skeletons of two Native American infants. They were both 11,500 years old and members of the same family. These were not regular skeletons. They were well preserved enough to help scientists understand early humanity. In fact, they include information about the first humans to visit North America. And researchers visited a remote Alaskan location. In the early 2000s, anthropology professor Ben Potter started working in Upward Sun River, Alaska. That area of Alaska was once connected to Europe and Africa. This forested location is 50 miles from the Fairbanks, Alaska area, and only accessible by helicopter. Despite the rough terrain, Potter had a valid excuse for excavating there. And what is Beringia? When Pangaea began to disintegrate, several land corridors remained between the continents. The earliest known humans were born in Africa, but they spread around the world. Theory goes, Beringia served as a bridge between Siberia and Alaska. Many archaeologists believe that the first North American inhabitants crossed that bridge around 34,000 years ago. However, this was only a theory. The Beringian standstill hypothesis. Many historians assume that early humans reached Beringia, although they don't know who accomplished it. One proposal, known as the Beringian standstill hypothesis, attempts to address this. According to the concept, the ancient Beringians lived alone on Beringia due to the ice and hard environment. If this is accurate, archaeologist Jennifer Raff believes the Beringians are the sole forefathers of all Native Americans. Native Americans still reside close to the Upward Sun River. In fact, the name Upward Sun River is a translation of the Athabascan language Ha-sa-na, which is still spoken by Native Americans in Alaska, and is also part of their area. Potter interacted with Native Americans during his excavations. They are typically fiercely protective of their burial grounds. Nonetheless, they recognize the value of Potter's work and offered to assist him. The first discovery, a 3-year-old child. In 2010, Potter and other University of Alaska scholars investigated the Upward Sun River. They found the cremated remains of a 3-year-old child. At 11,500 years old, this discovery was extremely rare. Unfortunately, the skeleton was not sufficiently preserved to extract DNA from it. Scientists could not even determine the gender. Despite the letdown, Potter did not give up. Despite their modest success, Potter and his colleagues refused to give up. They continued excavating in that area for another 8 years. Potter and his colleagues, Jose Victor Moreno Mayer and Lazar Wiener, got their big break. They discovered an approximately 15,000-year-old burial site in Alaska. At last, they discovered the skeletons of 2 babies. Potter and his team unearthed 2 newborn skeletons. One appeared to be stillborn, while the other was between 6 and 12 weeks old. The 2, like the 3-year-old, appeared to have been incinerated with their ashes resting on a fire pit. However, these remains were better kept and easier to identify. The burial ground was well preserved. The 2 infants were buried behind several things and covered in red ochre. This ochre, which was most likely used at the funeral, helped to preserve the skeletons. The babies were also buried under a mixture of sand and soil. This high acid mixture is great for preservation. Clearly, the individuals who buried them loved them very much. Now, who were these 2 girls? The DNA test confirmed that both infants were female and related, likely first cousins. The stillborn died at 30 weeks gestation, having never had the opportunity to live. The local native community dubbed the girls Hachiti-Anen Tedi Gai, sunrise girl child, and Yel Kanen Tedi Gai, dawn twilight girl child. And there were other items in the grave as well. This burial was obviously important to the mourners. Archaeologists found several more objects in the burial, including antlers and spear points. The two girls were buried together in a joint funeral. However, Sunrise Girl, the 6-week-old newborn, appeared to be better maintained and provided the foundation for the majority of the DNA results. What exactly were the researchers studying? To investigate the DNA, geneticists had to delve into the mitochondria. Every cell in the body has DNA, and the mitochondria power the cells. Science students remember mitochondria as a powerhouse of the cell because cells die without them. As a result, the scientists require healthy cells to examine, which is easier said than done. And here's why they could not study the 3-year-old. Old bones are not guaranteed to contain living cells. If scientists want to investigate DNA, they need a bone that is thick enough and well kept. However, with the 2 infants, they could. Researchers usually test the petrous bone, which is located at the base of the skull. Because the 3-year-old bones were too destroyed, researchers were unable to examine the DNA. Now, what came from the DNA tests? Sunrise Girl's ethnicity was confirmed by the first wave of DNA tests conducted at the University of Alaska. According to the findings, she was closely related to Native Americans, but in a unique way. Scientists believe her DNA was significantly older than any previously analyzed remains. In other words, she represents a hitherto unknown genetic community of Native Americans. They revealed a new ancient human. This previously undiscovered DNA, identified as USR1, dates back at least 20,000 years and possibly up to 34,000 years. And according to Eske Willerslev, professor, University of Copenhagen, and co-author of the study, they are the oldest known Native Americans. It changes our understanding of the timing of events that formed the genetics of Native Americans, Willerslev told CNN Health. They may be Beringians from ancient times. Sunrise Girl's DNA supports the Beringian standstill concept. Scientists believe she could be an ancient Beringian, something specialists have only speculated about previously. We think the explanation for this pattern, the one that requires the least movement, was that Native Americans were somewhere in Beringia 20,000 years ago, noted Victor Moreno Maillard, another research author. But the 2 girls had different DNA. The initial DNA study was performed on the 6-week-old skull. Geneticists predicted that the second infant will have comparable DNA, but unexpectedly she did not. Dawn Twilight Girl, the stillborn, was investigated at the University of Copenhagen in Denmark. She had a completely different maternal ancestry than her first cousin, and the 2 were not linked. Researchers say Native Americans had 2 branches. Geneticists have divided Native Americans into 2 groups, Northern and Southern. At some point, the tribe divided and the Southern Native Americans relocated to South America. The Northern group originated from East Asia and most likely lived in North America, including Alaska and Canada. They were all derived from the ancient Beringians, but the split caused variances in their DNA. The 2 infants had different ethnicities. Simply put, DNA tests revealed that both ladies belonged to 2 distinct groups. Sunrise Girl belonged to the ancient Beringians, but Dawn Twilight Girl came from a different ethnicity, one more closely related to Northern Native Americans. And this raises the question of how these 2 groups of people ended up in the same location at the same time. However, Sunrise Girl belonging to a mysterious 3rd group. Surprisingly, Sunrise Girl did not belong to in either of these categories. This indicates that the ancient Beringians were divided into at least 3 tribes, if not more. Using demographic modeling, scientists determined that Native Americans left East Asia 36,000 years ago. By 20,000 years ago, this group had divided, but if they separated, why were these two infants then buried together? All groups split off from one. Archaeologists thought that the two groups came together at least once, which explains why the girls were linked. They provided 2 options for this. The Beringians may have separated before crossing the bridge, only to reconnect later. Alternatively, the Beringians might have divided after crossing. Potter refers the latter theory. And during an interview with The Atlantic, he suggested that both tribes had crossed Beringia independently. Normally, this notion would appear far-fetched. However, there is some evidence to back this up. Support for Potter's theory. In 2017, archaeologists investigated the Bluish Caves in Canada's Yukon Territory. If this is correct, as the raft believes, then humans reached Beringia at least 24,000 years ago. And according to investigation of these caverns, experts discovered evidence of human-cut patterns that were 24,000 years old. It was more than a decade before the 2 girls were born. And still, there are many unanswered questions. Although the finding of the girls confirmed many assumptions, it also created a number of issues that perhaps what happened to the Beringians and how did they come to Siberia in the first place? And given the rarity of these findings, these questions are unlikely to be answered anytime soon. Furthermore, not all specialists agree with Potter's beliefs, and that complicates matters. A few specialists disputed Potter's findings. The biggest objection against this finding is that it is only one finding. Dennis O'Rourke, a geneticist and archaeologist, believes that a single sample isn't sufficient to analyze the total human population. We could know something about the extent of diversity in this early Beringian population with greater certainty if we had multiple genomes, O'Rourke told the Smithsonian Magazine. However, these findings are exceptionally rare. Finding more than one sample is easier said than done. It's difficult to convey to you how rare they are, Potter said. According to co-researcher Willerslev, prior to this discovery, scientists could only study this DNA in modern-day Alaskans and Siberians. Without additional samples, no one will know where the Beringians came from. Plus, Upward River is too young for ancient humans. Despite the age of Upward River's burial grounds, archaeologist Brian Weigel believes it is too young to understand early humans. The earliest proven race of human activity in eastern Beringia dates to around 14.1 thousand years ago, Weigel said, making the Upward Sun River site nearly 3,000 years too young to be representative of the initial human colonization of the New World. What happened to the Beringians? After Potter's discovery was published in the scientific magazine Nature, many people wondered what happened to the Beringians, and Potter said, "We just don't know." Again, this question requires additional data to be answered. However, Potter intends to collect DNA samples from nearby residents. Because scientists know that Beringian DNA, what it looks like, they can determine whether the gene still exists in Native Americans. What were the Beringians like? Research has offered a glimpse into the Beringians' life. Potter describes them as adept hunters who ate bison, elk, rabbits, squirrels, and birds. They most likely hunted with original organized groups. Potter also discovered evidence of salmon exploitation reaching back 6,000 years, including that the Beringians presumably fished and traded as well. They might have evolved into the modern Native Americans. Potter proposed that the Beringian gene may have integrated into Alaska's indigenous peoples. This is a natural outcome of evolution. It's possible that incoming Athabascan ancestors, who are widespread throughout the region today, replaced or absorbed the ancient Beringian inhabiting the area, according to Potter. If this is accurate, many people may have Beringian ancestry without realizing it. So all of these three types of branches coming from the Beringian area, we can imagine the upheaval and the earth changes that happened since then. This is on Daily Sport X. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.